Al Ewing, Donny Cates, and Salvatore LaRocca bring new threats to Asgard as the All-Father teams with the King in Black against a powerful new enemy who threatens to destroy everything Thor has rebuilt in Asgard. Al Ewing joins Donny Cates again for a new Thor story that brings in Eddie Brock to help battle Darkoth the Death Demon, an old-school villain Thor once fought a few decades ago, but this time with a new spin, tying it into what's been happening over in Ewing's Venom book at the moment with Bedlam, a new King in Black, and doing it in a way where you don't actually have to pick up what's happening in Venom to understand what's happening here, something I very much appreciate. The way Ewing and Cates play off each other in the story structure is brilliant, and I hope this story isn't the last we get of them working together, since they have a great understanding of what each other wants to achieve, how to go about it, all while effortlessly tying it together in their own solo stories from their own books with each other like they were meant to be together and are building towards something bigger, which personally I think they are, being that Donny has had announced that Thanos book that's coming out that's kind of tying up all his Thor stuff, and I'm sure Ewing is going to get in on that as well. Salvatore LaRocca takes on art duties with some really visually engaging fight sequences and wonderfully detailed character moments, specifically once Eddie gets involved in the story, since we get really cool ways that symbiotes can reform and transform themselves, and there's a cool part where he reforms himself from like just a puddle of ooze, which looks really cool since it was really highly detailed. Thor issue 27 was a very fun beginning to a cool team-up story from two characters at interesting points in their lives by two really cool writers, making for an action-packed, visually engaging issue. I'm going to give this issue a 9.5 out of 10. Thor issue 27 finds Odin's son weighing up the recent incident he had with Hulk and how he was turned into a Hulk, his rage becoming unchained from deep within him. Odin knows that the boy is brooding, but Thor tells him to shut up, but Odin refuses, saying how can he act like this is the first time he has lost his temper. Thor reminds him that he destroyed the Bifrost with that temper, but Odin knows that it was the Gamma acting on him and Banner's bad influence. But Thor knows that he did the deed even if he couldn't pretend he didn't, and he is still king and all-father, and the buck stops with him. Loki arrives, joking about how he's there for tips on how to decorate his next pity party. Thor wonders if he's there to gloat, as Loki reveals he's there just to check on Donald Blake and to make sure he's still where he left him. Thor wants to know where Loki left him, having made the mistake of leaving Blake's punishment up to Loki and not knowing about it until now. Loki reminds his brother that he told him not to ask any questions since he would only lie, and that's not his job anymore. Loki merely says that Blake is paying an old blood price for his sins. Thor wishes to know what that is, but Odin reminds him to stop wasting time with the other god, since his subjects need Thor's aid. Thor agrees, telling Loki that the Bifrost is broken, but Loki knows that it's not a problem for Thor, being that Mjolnir can still conjure up the dimensional winds. However, the average Asgardian does have the right to freedom. Thor wants Loki's help in remaking the Bifrost, even allowing him to pick the colors this time, making Loki joke about how he's a Bifrost giant, so it is by fate that they are to work together. Hours later, Loki relents at his work, with Sif finding that Thor should have asked a professional like Doctor Strange, but Thor says Strange is dead. Loki discovers that while Thor did break the Bifrost, the bridge is still connected to Asgard in ways that can't be broken, even by a hulked out Allfather. He begins assembling the glass pieces, telling his brother that since the magical essence is still there, all it's doing is blocking new construction, and clearing the magical rubble could take up to a month or even 10,000 years. Loki knows that it will be tricky, but tricky is what he does, and Asgard doesn't need the Bifrost, and Thor would like it since that's what he's used to and knows how it works. But other magical transportation methods are available for them, and even Midgard's tech could help them if they just strengthen it up a little bit. Odin says he enjoys Midgard's tech, wondering if a hammer can fire a gun, but Thor doesn't want to find out, knowing Midgard tech has its place, but he would like something they can maintain themselves, like magic. Loki conjures up a stepping disc portal through limbo, and suddenly a being smashes his way through, grabbing Loki. Thor confronts the being, citing the ichor that covers him that makes him think of rumors of dark deeds in far-off realms, and how this is connected to that, and if it is, they may face a fight for their lives. Thor thinks the being looks familiar as the being rips some of the ichor from its face, making Thor realize that the being is Darkoth the Death Demon. He tells Sif about Desmond Pitt, the being ensnared in Mephisto's games, and how he was transformed by Doctor Doom, his bones covered with a demonic demonic element called promethium, which turned him into the Death Demon. The Death Demon unleashes an earth-shattering blast that Thor notices is a lot stronger than it was before, wanting to stop Darkoth before he gets too loose. Thor fears the noble man who was once Desmond Pitt is long gone, as Sif points to puddles of ooze on the floor beginning to move and reform. Thor tells his friends to be ready for anything as the ooze reforms into the King in Black, Eddie Brock. Eddie introduces himself, saying that he noticed some Klyntar goop all the way out in the 10 realms, and that's a rarity, so he thought he would check it out. He tries to remember if Thor is the Allfather, apologizing since while they have met, it's been a long time for him and things have been pretty crazy in his life. Darkoth meanwhile heads into Asgard as the Warriors 4 spot him. The villain prepares to fire his death beam again, but Mjolnir hits him as Thor tries to reason with Desmond. Eddie knows that it's no good since Desmond is just along for the ride and there is a newborn symbiote born from Bedlam in the driver's seat. Eddie explains that Bedlam is a fellow King in Black and he and Darkoth fought long ago. However, Darkoth should have died. Eddie is confused about why he can't take control of the symbiote with his own king power, and maybe his promethium bones are what's stopping him. Eddie transforms into Venom, attacking the villain as Thor knows that the King in Black isn't telling him everything. The Warriors 4 are sent to protect the people of Asgard as Darkoth grabs Eddie, who wants to know how the symbiote's host can even be alive after a fight with Bedlam. Darkoth begins burning Eddie with his touch as Thor unleashes his lightning on the villain, saving Eddie from certain death. Eddie thinks that the child is tougher than he thought and he's got full control over the promethium in Darkoth's body and it can hurt even the King in Black. But luckily right now that power is being used instinctively, but Bedlam's child is learning quickly and he will try and impose his will on the metal and shape it into the most powerful weapon he can see. Thor knows what this means as the symbiote uses the promethium in Darkoth's body to make its own Mjolnir to combat Thor and the King in Black.